it's a constant balance of like, how do you make this a good experience when it's not a great experience during the building process?
There's a fancy concept and there's, cool aspects of that, but the reality of it is, what can you actually put on the ground?
A larger pool of people have that experience, right? Like, let's design our dream. And then you're like, ooh.
I was a skeptic, and it was kind of, I'm sitting here thinking, we're in Conway, South Carolina. How are we going to pull this off?
More often than not, we're dealing with people, and maybe we're only with them for, 12 months, but they've been in this process of like building this dream for years prior to we even got there. What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Barndo Co. We are live in Conway, South Carolina with the Hoelscher family sitting in front of their beautiful Barndo that's almost done. So what's up, guys? Why don't you tell everybody who you are and kind of what you do and how you came to Conway?
Well, thank you so much for coming down. This has been awesome. We are the Hoelschers. We got two daughters that are more than excited to get into this thing. I think we are both, everyone's jazzed. It's been a long process. It's been 2 years. So not on anything that y'all have done. It's just been a slow process for us, and I think we kind of
getting to the point where we are now.
Yeah. But locally, I'm a landscape architect, and Andrew is an outside sales rep.
Yep, veterinary pharmaceutical sales.
Nice. So it's you talked about like, hey, this takes a little bit of time. And I think that's an expectation that a lot of people don't realize. There's so much that goes into build on your lot. And so like, we're coming to land that you own, and there's some things that you guys are responsible for, and then the build's us. But putting all those pieces together, like it sometimes is a longer process. Now, there are some people that it just falls into place and it happens very quickly, but more often than not, we're dealing with people, and maybe we're only with them for, 12 months, but they've been in this process of like building this dream for years prior to we even got there. So talk a little bit about that. Like, how did you guys find this? What was that process like for you guys, like finding the piece of land? And then we'll talk a little bit about like how you came to find us.
So we lived in the suburbs. We were suburb people, lived in a 3,500 square foot house in a gated neighborhood, and everything was great. And I think during that course, and I guess maybe it's something larger, having the two girls and not having them exposed to being outside, and everything is digital, and through COVID, you just the world kind of shrinks. And so we had ultimately looked for a piece of property, kind of a weekend thing, and never really considered moving out of that suburban lifestyle. And so we were looking for pieces of property, and this came up. It was listed as a commercial property, and we came out here and took a look. I hiked through the woods, looked nothing like this. It was
very thick.
And so we kind of talked about it, and we said, let's do it.
Yep.
And
we sold the house, we bought the property.
Yeah.
So during that process, we lived at a campground. So we bought a fifth wheel, lived at a campground for 6 months.
Luxury resort campground.
And so
it was nice.
In that process, we were able to get water out here. So we brought the fifth wheel out, and the second part of that process was to get sewer connection. And to get sewer connection, we had to build essentially a storage building with a bathroom. And that's a little tiny house up at the front. So all of those things, the culmination of that is just a slow process. I was building it on the weekends, so you couldn't get the sewer pump installed until we hit a certain benchmark in the build process. Well, we couldn't get to the build process, inspections and all that stuff, just a matter of time. So it was that process, and doing that, we were kind of figuring out what we wanted. We knew that we wanted a barndominium, and that's kind of, we were moving out of the suburbs, out of the typical house production build, and wanted something different. We're on 50 acres here, and let's do something different. And that's kind of how we started with that barndominium concept. And we didn't really know where to go. We knew the idea. We saw the stuff that's online that's out of Texas and all those fancy things. And there's a fancy concept, and there's cool aspects of that, but the reality of it is, what can you actually put on the ground? And that was that slow process.
Yeah. Well, you talk about like the temporary living. So probably 80% of the people that we're building for are living on that property while we're building it. And
And we're still married.
yeah,
That's a good thing.
yeah. Well, I tell everyone,
Running out of time.
well, I try to tell everyone like proper expectations, and we've learned more the more we've done. You know that like it is stressful building, no matter what. And then you know you go add an element of the fact that you bought land, and a lot of times people are buying large parcels of land, and then they're creating this temporary dwelling, or it might be a fifth wheel, it might be a tiny house, right? But they have something that they're living in, and it's night and day from what they were previously living in. And so there's a whole like life cycle adjustment. Plus, you've got all the money that you've invested into this. You got all the stress and the tension of, is it ever going to be done? And so it builds up. And you know, one thing that we do a good job of like teaching our team is like their emergency may not be your emergency. Okay. That's a fact. But you have to see it and have empathy from the perspective of where they are. Mm-hmm. And so it's kind of a shift, because a lot of like the growth that we've experienced, the way, how do you build hundreds and hundreds of houses? You have to go hire experienced people who are used to production style building, and they've never been in an environment like this. And so it's a little bit of a learning curve of like, hey, we're not building for ourselves. We're not building 150 houses all side by side. We're spread out. We're on other people's property, and everyone has a specific story and a specific goal and a specific stress. And the more you can meet them in that moment, you can really like build a good relationship, but you got to be aware of the differences.
Yeah.
And so, you know, it's fun, because like everybody we talk to, like especially at like when we go out and do the site visit, if we see that like they're there, or we're trying to do like get temporary power as fast as possible, because like we got to set this up, we're living on a generator, you know, it adds an element of stress to the homeowner. Mm-hmm. But we can't really like connect to that stress because we have a job to do. And so it's a constant balance of like, how do you make this a good experience when it's not a great experience during the building process? So
yeah, you're basically bridging the gap between a site contractor and, you know, what you guys are doing, which is the vertical element. And so to blend those together on a piece of property, whether it's, you know, 2 acres or 50 acres, is challenging, because I think a lot of those folks that, you know, just kind of jump into it and like, we're going to whip it together, and you know, there's got to be water and sewer out front, and there's got to be all these utilities that are available, because they've always been available. And you kind of have to go into it knowing like, this is the plan, it's going to be slow, and these are the steps to get there. So to kind of manage the site development end from a homeowner's perspective, it's a slow process. Even though you really want it to go quick, there is a level of, is everything in place? When I drag power in, is it going to be in the right spot? Am I going to, you know, long term? So short term, you know, I got to get it cranked up. Yep. But the long term part of that is also a really important component, and it's slow. That's just the nature.
Well, I mean, you've got 50 acres. And you got to figure out, where's that perfect half acre where I'm going to build. Right. And it may have been, I wanted it here, but the cost to get it there versus the cost to say, I'll settle for it to be here, right, you know, with driveway expenses and running utilities. And, you know, then you also got the mafia of every state, which is like their DHEC department that comes out and does their septic and, you know, sewer plans. And, you know, like there's certain limitations. Yeah. And so you're constantly having to compromise on a vision, mm-hmm, and balance it between budget, vision, and build these compromises to get it there. And some people are really okay with that. Some people have the ability to make those decisions quickly. Yeah. And then others struggle because this isn't exactly how I wanted it. And so it's a constant balance of like the emotion, right? And so it's like I say, it can kind of go quickly, or it can take a little while. But the beautiful thing about it is, and what we try to do, and it's intentional on our side, is everybody comes in ready to go. How quick can we get there? And we intentionally draw out the front end to a 90 to 180 day window, because there are some critical elements that if we were to rush it, you would have been dissatisfied once they started going vertical. And even with some extension as you build, you will immediately see things you go, I wish I would have done something different here. It's just part of how we operate as humans, right? We're constantly improving everything. Just look at where we're at today, go back 100 years, go back 500 years. Like, it's constant evolution and improvement to society. And so it happens in these builds. You walk in, you're like, dang, should have done this. And so it's again, it's a balance. So how did you find us? Because we were talking right before this started. Like,
Yes.
I had the first conversation with you guys, and I was actually in Myrtle Beach, and we were not building in the area, but I was like, we're definitely going to,
Yep.
and so it's kind of funny that I thought about that, like, when I was pulling, I was like, I'm pretty confident that I had the first conversation with you,
You did.
and yeah,
So in the beginning of our research online, that's how I found you. Just reading through everything. And I was like, well, let me just call them and find out. So I called, and I think at the time you guys were still a very small company.
Yeah.
Probably just you and Ross.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two other employees. But I think I left a message or I sent an email, and you gave me a call. And you walked me through the process. I think you spent about 20 minutes on the phone with me. And after we got off the phone, I was like, I feel good about this. I feel good about TJ. I feel good about the Barndo Co. So I talked to Sean about it, and we kind of ventured into the partnership then.
Yeah.
Early on, 2 years ago.
The
Yeah.
dating relationship.
Yeah.
That was
Talk about the dating.
Well, and so everyone, there's uncertainty there, right? Because you have a vision, and then you got to find someone who's capable of making it reality, and that isn't always quick.
Mhm.
And so, we had a conversation. I kind of walked through what the onboarding process looks like, and then you guys had some homework here that you're trying to solve and, like, figure out what your timeline's going to look like. And then when you came back, I was no longer in sales, and I think you guys got partnered with Olivia,
We did.
who's a great. So that,
Wonderful.
yeah, Olivia's phenomenal, and she's been on the show before, so you can go back and find Olivia's episode. But Olivia is a phenomenal sales agent. Really understands the process. She was one of the first ones that we hired. Her and Shannon been here the longest of anybody. But you kind of came back, and so talk through that a little bit, because one of the things that we stand on, and whether it's a wise business thing or not, is choose us, don't just use us. There's tons of options, and we aren't the best builder for everyone, and every client's not the best client for us. And so we talk about that, like, hey, as a 2-year window, what was some of the conversations that went on? What were some of the things? What other, like, alternatives did you explore? And then how did we end up here?
So to kind of go back just a second, Andrea she was on board from day one, and it was me. It's my fault. I'm sorry. I was a skeptic, and it was kind of, I'm sitting here thinking, we're in Conway, South Carolina. How are we going to pull this off? And you were in the fuse got lit stage. And so
Yep.
you guys were growing and rocking and rolling. And we were kind of like, how are we going to do this? And so we went through the process, and it was great. And Jeff was great, and we ended up designing a massive barndominium.
Carried away.
Yeah.
We got very carried away.
It's out there somewhere, maybe the Basswood.
Yes, the Basswood plant.
If anyone builds one, we'd love to see it in real life. But the design process was great because, it's a number. Like, you can incorporate design elements and different modifications, but it all is tied to a number. And, I don't think we really wanted to buy into that. And so we were like, we're hammering down through this design process, and Jeff, he knocked it out. It was awesome. We got done and was like, well, that doesn't really work. It looks great,
Price
but
doesn't really work.
it didn't really fit our mold. So we pulled back, and, as probably everyone does, is like, there's gotta be a way. And so we kicked the tires on a bunch of different options. And, there's a lot of folks out there willing to take advantage of people that are kind of, engaging in that process that don't really have a good idea of what they're getting into. There's plenty of people that'll drop metal off at the the highway out here and walk away, and then what do you do with it?
Yeah.
And finding a way to pull all those concepts and pieces together is just, an individual, I don't think, understands the breadth of which, the energy that it'll take to do that. And that's kind of, we explored those options, and we explored going back to a traditional thing. And I think at the end of the day, the concept was, we clicked on Barndo Co for a reason. I think it was the concept. We wanted the barndominium. We wanted to be different. We kind of had stepped out of the mold. And so we kind of went full circle and said, these are the folks that can pull this off from start to finish and bring all those elements together and be able to kind of tie it all up and really get us to the finish line. I think that's where we came back to, and it was full circle. It was just a process that I think was very helpful because, you know, at the end of the day, we know that we looked at a bunch of different options, and
We explored every option.
this is the option that will get you from A to B. And I don't think there's another one out there. And, you know, you talk about, you know, the going from, you know, a small company, you and Ross, to, you know, now where you are, and it's a brand. I think that whole build concept has sort of evolved into that brand is out there, and, you know, folks can come and look at it and put your hands on it. And the more places you go in East Tennessee and, you know, Somerville and in North Carolina, everyone's getting an opportunity to see that evolution. And I think in our 2-year relationship,
Right.
it's grown into that, and it's actually been kind of fun to see. So when we came back, like, oh, you got marketing people? Like, yeah, we didn't have any of that. So
Yeah.
The whole team.
we kind of, you know, in our evolution process, we got to see full circle that growth and how fun it was to we knew the concept was there, and we knew that the ability to pull it off, the barndominium concept, was there with y'all the whole time. It's just a matter of us working through the process.
Figuring things out.
Well, the good thing is the delay gave you a better experience.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a couple things that go into that. One is we set out in the beginning and to build barndos, and that was it. That was the mission, build barndominiums. And we were only doing cash because we couldn't figure out how to do financing at the time. So when we started, we were only marketing to cash consumers, and most of those cash consumers were extremely custom, and, you know, like, they're designing houses that you would never sell again. And there was a piece of me that was like, there's too much freedom. There's too many options. And a larger pool of people had that experience, right? Like, we're going to, oh yeah, let's design our dream. And then you're like, ooh, you know? And so that happened over and over and over again. So we had to, we're like, okay, well, we need to put boundaries up. Like, how do we prevent people from getting here? And so we put a new level of boundary in, and we communicated that boundary. And Jeff does a phenomenal job, Jeff Fry. And, you know, he's still with us. He's been with us for the last couple years, and he's actually, you know, getting ready to take a new role in the company with us and, like, elevate the service even more. And, you know, but part of that was, like, just building barndos and then figuring out how to finance them, figuring out how to put plans together that would meet people's needs that could then be customized to meet your wants. And so we kind of shifted to more of a semi-custom option. We still do customs. We still design barns all day, every day. But we've gotten really, really good at the process. And so, like, but when we went from, like, hey, we're just going to build barndos, 2 guys in a truck, to we're going to build a brand that takes us to the next level, it started with core values, and the first one we dropped was we want to be the best. And part of that experience of being the best is admitting that you're not in a certain area. And so we had to take a deep look at, like, where are we not the best? Let's put all of our effort and emphasis in that area. And it's not fun. It's not the fun stuff. We've always built great buildings. How do you become the best communicator? How do you become the best experience? How do you become the best design? How do you become the best at balancing budget and design? How do you become the best at balancing budget, design, emotions, and different land every single time? Like, you're building this beautiful barn, and we've built a similar plan numerous times, but every time it's on a different piece of land with different soil composition, with different entrance, with different colors, different selections inside. So they're all custom, but how you do that the best? And so we really sought out to do that. And you guys have kind of been around long enough to see that evolution of, you know, 2 guys in a truck to a team of 50 plus people in multiple states. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's how do we deliver the best experience possible for people? And I don't feel like we're there yet. We're probably the best, but we're not where I want to see us be. And so we're constantly changing the process. We're constantly improving the process. And it's fun, it's rewarding to see something like this happen where there was a little bit of, like, I don't know if I'm bought into this, you know, like and I would be the same. And so I always approach everything from that perspective of, hey, me too. I would be a skeptic. And so, you know, it's just fun. And now here we are, and we're literally like 15 minutes from a place that we just, you know, put under contract to build out a showroom and design center in your backyard. So the next people that build here, their level of experience is going to be even better than the experience you had. And you guys are like, we're Raven fans, you know?
Yeah.
So it's just a commitment to always getting better. Man, we've got massive construction going on.
We're on that
So,
timeline.
yeah. This is live action, guys. Like, but
You mentioned one of the things that makes it unique, and I think in the custom, what's this called? What it is? It's a custom home or semi-custom home. You know, everything is commonly cost plus 10. And the thing that makes it unique, and maybe it was one of the things that we didn't quite understand at first, was like, here's the number. Like this is what it is. And you know, you manage your pot of money to do the site stuff, and you know, you gotta, as an individual, as a homeowner or a landowner, you really have to guard that pot of money, because you know, there's things that will come up along the way. But the relief of, like, you know, we're signing everything, this is the number, I know what it is, and I know exactly what I'm getting. I don't have to worry about it. I don't have to, you know, Scott calls, hey, this is gone up, or now it's this, or the number changed. It's so easy that, like, this is it. And I think that makes it unique in the build process. I have, you know, got a friend that's going through the same process, and every little item is, you know, we're negotiating. This is, you know, is that amount really that amount? And you guys just take the different approach, like, here it is.
yeah. Well, it's the biggest issue is money. And so if the biggest risk is cost, I want to assume it. And that's, again, I don't know if that's a great business strategy, but as a person that loves people, and my objective has always been, from employees to consumers, I care about them more than anything. On the way here, having conversations with my team, and I was like, hey, that's a great idea, but that doesn't protect consumers. Shift liability to us. And if we can't solve it under that threat of liability, then we're experiencing what a consumer would experience if we were to try to shift liability. And I wanted to do things a different way. Yeah, we have a different product, but how do we build a different process? And so, you know, it comes from years of being around this and years of interviewing people. You know, I own a real estate brokerage as well, so it's not like I haven't been around other builders and seen that. And I knew that, like, hey, when people build in a production setting, they tally up their costs and then they go to market. That's cool too, but you got to find a buyer that can afford it at that point. So my question was always, how do we get good enough that we know what it costs and we can do all the due diligence, and we created onboarding so that we give people the ability to start building and processing that, and then we can start working on the numbers and get all that, so that once all of that is done, we can negotiate in that stage, we can take away, we can add to, we can do whatever. But when you sign, regardless of how long it takes to build it, right? And this one's going up so quickly, but you like you said, you're not worried about what may happen.
Right.
And we have to assume that risk. And if we're going to say we're the best, then we shouldn't have a problem with that. And that's kind of the approach that we took to that.
I don't know how you can say that or question that it's not a good business model, because I mean, in the 2 years that we've been a part of y'all, you started in Duncan, in Somerville, and North Carolina, East Tennessee. Now you're talking about Conway. I mean, I would,
years.
I would question that. You know, you shouldn't doubt it is a successful business model, and the proof is that we're sitting here, you know, talking about it in Conway 2 years later, when, you know, it was just a phone call, and we can do that. So I think I wouldn't undersell it. It is a good business model, and I think that's part of where the concept of the brand is building that. You know, that's kind of a foundation for that. And I think it's successful, and the proof is, you know, where you've gotten to in that 2-year window.
Every decision has to be based on consumer confidence, because I will tell you this, the onboarding, now it's just part of the game. Other builders are doing it. So, like, I see it in our own channels. Like, I mean, we have Facebook groups of hundreds of thousands of people, and I see other builders are like, our onboarding packages, you know, and I'm like, I can remember 2.5 years ago when I created that, everyone would be like, that's ludicrous. What builder charges you to do this? And I'm like, it's part of the process. Like, I'm trying to protect people. I don't want you to sign a contract today. I want you to know what you're getting. Like, let's plan this, let's figure it out. And if it doesn't work, hey, it was a $5,000 deal, but I'm equipped now to go talk to other people. But now to see it kind of be widely adopted, it's fun. But it's always for me is like consumer confidence. How do I protect consumers? Because everyone's struggling the same way through this. It's not easy. But that's one extra level of protection that we can offer people is when we sign a contract,
Mm-hmm.
and it hasn't always been that great, right? It took a lot of things, and there's a lot of jobs where we didn't make industry standard margins on because we had it priced wrong. Well, guess what? You still got the build. You still paid what you paid. We ate that, and we said, if we're going to be around for a little while, we better fix this problem. So it holds us highly accountable that we're building a sustainable process. And, so that's fun.
You talk about consumer confidence and kind of being very transparent. What was it? Like a month and a half ago, we did the open house event.
Mm-hmm.
And, Andrew was in here and I didn't really know what to do. So I was up at the front burning stumps.
He was hiding. I was talking to everybody.
And it was so much fun to run into folks leaving like, hey, tell me about, what's going on. And it was fun to kind of be like behind the scenes, cheerleading the whole process. And I don't know of too many people that are come take a look at midway through a residential build and, here it is.
Yeah.
And for people to come and see and, tangibly, have an idea of what that outcome is. There's not many people doing that. And to have the confidence, like, yeah, come on, let's take a look. And we didn't do that as a part of the process. I think there was one in the upstate and it was
like a 4 or 5 hour drive.
We just couldn't pull it off. But nonetheless, it's so fun that now as you go into these new markets that there's so many more people that can, you can invite on and say, hey, look, this is what we're putting together and this is the value. And I think some of that value is to walk in and see, 6x6 columns and metal trusses and like, this is a superstructure. It is it's not a typical residential home. And to look at that and you're like, man, this is awesome. So I think part of that brand building and the consumer confidence is y'all's willingness to say, hey, come take a look.
Yeah. There's no secrets and there's no sleight of hand. Like, I want you to see it in this stage because your home will look like this at some point. And I want you to remember, yeah, well, theirs did too, and then they'll see the finished photos and they'll be like, oh, we toured the house. Like, oh, it did turn into a beautiful home, So it's just part of the thing. And the vast majority of people have never been on a job site. So it's fun to expose them to job sites in different stages. And it just, again, this is what it looks like, right? It's not pretty until it's done. Mm-hmm. And so getting people in that, because it's a hard thing, especially like you live right there. Yeah. So they come down here and work all day. You come home from work, you've had a bad day. You walk down here and you're like, what is going on my job site? Like you're here every minute. You see everything that changes. You see things. And part of that is like, you're going to see the mess in between. And sometimes you like, you've never experienced that. So you're like, this is a problem. Let me text this picture to Scott right now, And so then it becomes this thing to where
I just did it once.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's a blessing. You did. Scott's lucky. But look, and I tell them like, they're not angry. They just don't know. And so, explain it. And so part of that is, hey, we want to expose people to as much as we can. Like we take people out sometimes and show them a pad with poles and trusses. And they're like, wow, this isn't what I was expecting for a home tour. And I'm like, yeah, we're going to take you to another one. But I want you to see this because this is what yours will look like this, day 13, yeah. This is what you're going to look like. And so it's fun to do that. But I want to circle back for a second. So you guys met us, we kind of talked through that. What was the moment after contracts were signed, everything was here, that's been like the most exciting part for you guys, apart from moving day, because that wins every time. But
go ahead.
No, you go.
I think the most exciting part, well, it was exciting and scary at the same time. And we poured concrete and then we went on vacation. And during the vacation, there's a hurricane that brewed. And Debbie, we were in Michigan watching this thing, and Scott and I are texting back and forth, and he's like, we're going to go ahead and start framing. I'm like, we're going to start framing? Just wait a week? And so it was so exciting to come home, but at the same time, that storm hit like that Sunday, And I met Scott out here Monday morning, and everything was roughed in, they're framed in, and the windows are all exposed, and so there's a bunch of water. I'm in there frantically sweeping around. I'm like, Scott, this is terrible. There's all this water. He's a huge smile. He's like, everything's gonna be fine. I got so and so coming. Everything will be it'll be good. And I was panicked that we had all this water in, and so it was exciting to come home to this box. This has just been the woods, and we hadn't really tangibly been able to see anything. So it was fun to kind of watch that happen, but it was also terrifying at the same time.
He really was out here sweeping water, like out of the house.
All right.
But anyway, so that was kind of, I think from my point of view, the most exciting to watch that instant transformation of, we've been here for a year and a half and hadn't had anything really tangible happen. And so to see that rapid, growth was cool.
Yeah.
I think walking back every evening when we get home, we come and take a look at the house and see what's been done. And that the girls walk back with us, and we all just, walk through, and we're so excited to see every day what's been done.
Yeah. It's fun to see it unfold. They've been in there like picking bedrooms, right?
Bedrooms picked all the time.
What's been the most challenging thing, like for the whole process? And I know we talked a little bit about like making the initial decision, but beyond that, like what's something that, like, if someone was listening to this that's thinking about building, that wasn't on your radar, but you experienced it and it was challenging for you guys?
I think it's challenging to sit. It's basically like, I think it's like a triage session of cake making is what the build process is, because you have all these different ingredients and each one has its own chef, and everyone's in the kitchen at the same time, and you're making a mess, and your feelings are going to get hurt probably. You've done something, like my road got torn up and my feelings got hurt, and you got all this controlled chaos going on. And I think what's challenging is just step back and say, it's all good. The cookies at the end of the cake or the cooking session are going to be awesome.
Yep.
Just step back and let it happen. And there's part of that's been, Scott's awesome to communicate with, and Andrew's a Builder Trend person. And I'm let me just send you a message real quick.
Yep.
But once you figure all that out and you're like, okay, they got it under control, I'm going to sit back on the other side of the bar stool and watch all the cooking take place. And that's challenging to do, I think, because you're so vested in, it's got to be perfect. And the process isn't perfect, but the outcome is always perfect, I think. And that's where we're headed in this. And it's hard to kind of to pull back and like, they got it under control. So
Yep.
I think that's challenging.
Yep. No, I think that's a similar challenge for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Is it looks good, then it looks bad, then it looks good, then it looks bad, then it looks good, then it looks bad, and it's just part of that process, going along, and we're all working towards the same desired outcome. You liking Builder Trend makes me happy, because talk a little bit about that. So like Builder Trend is a build management software that we use, a lot of builders use, but we use it once a project kind of goes from, sales and everything's finalized, contracts are good, you have your RSB, that job goes live into Builder Trend, to where now that is communication platform for homeowners, project management, upper management, purchasing, subs, everyone is in there. And so part of that process is, they're putting in daily logs or weekly logs, and they're putting in progress photos, and it tells you like what the weather's like on the job site that day. And, if you have questions, you can go in there. But like, what about that process was good for you?
So it allows me to know what's going on, because I don't really understand the construction process.
Right.
I don't know all the ins and outs of what's going on, but I can open up that Builder Trend app and look at the date, and I know exactly what's going to be happening here today. I know that the painters are coming. I know when the countertops are going to be delivered, or the appliances. The appliances are delivered on my birthday, actually, so that would be nice.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. So it's just really nice to know what's going on. And Scott's very good about putting his notes in almost every day, about updates, changes, things like that. So I do look at it every day.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's a good tool, and it's just training people to use it. And everyone knows how to text and call, and it is a preferred method, and most of our guys are doing that too. But I think sometimes people don't understand the power that's inside of that. Like, there's so much in there, and you can kind of see, and like, if you have a question, you can almost look at it and go, oh, okay, this is happening tomorrow, so I can understand why they did this today. Or, hey, these people were here today, and you can also see the timeline. So like, if paint starts today and it's a 7-day thing, they're not done, right? And so it kind of eases some of that tension of like, this does not look good. Why did they leave? And so it is a good communication tool. And I found that people that are more unfamiliar with construction like it better because of the amount of data that's in it. And so it's fun to see when like someone's like, I love it, because it's a lot to educate people on how to use it. It's a lot to demand that everyone go in there and update every day, and getting our staff in there. But the goal behind it is so that you have as much transparency as possible what's going on in your job. And that's an evolution as well. Like, we used to be really good at getting everything in there, but not updating changes along the way. And so now Billy in our company, that's what he does. Like, he literally is constantly monitoring hundreds of jobs in Builder Trend and going, this schedule's off. This is this. Where's this log? And so we have a very high level expectation to our project managers and our subcontractors that they need to be in there updating that as frequently as possible with the best information. And if there's changes, fine, update it. And so that way you guys are kind of on the same way, because we're building it together. And the more that we make it a partnership, the better the outcome is. Because I think a lot of times people look at their builder as opposition, and in the grand scheme of things, I'm not saying that there's not people out there that do a terrible job, right? And I'm not saying that there's not clients that are just, you're never going to satisfy. There's both. But the goal is to build it as a partnership and not have opposition, because at the end of the day, we want it to be done as fast as you do, because we've got other ones to go build, and we don't get paid unless it's done and you're satisfied. And so it's building that teamwork through communication is one of the things that we've absolutely spent an enormous amount of time on to get to the level that we're at today, and we're still improving.
Yeah. And you talk about communication is definitely key, and you've mentioned in earlier podcasts, which are awesome, that 80-20 concept.
Yep.
And there's been time, I was steadfast. I was like, no way, this thing's gonna be awesome. I'm not gonna have a 20%. And you'll fall into that, and it's with good communication that you get out of it. So the 20% is like a temporary thing. I mean, You're in there, and you as a homeowner, you go like, all right, this is it. TJ warned me, I'm here.
Sean said it a few times. He's like, I'm doing this in my 20%. Let's go in my 20%.
How do I get out of it? It's with good communication. It's like, hey, Scott, we need to kind of modify this a little bit. He's like, yeah, we got it under control. And so without that, either Build a Trend or just even, typical communication, I don't think, people, you could have that stuff fester. And if you don't, as a homeowner, if you sit back on the sidelines like, that got put in wrong, I am furious, and you don't ever say anything, and the build process marches on like making a cake. Like, you can't go back and add a couple eggs after you're taking it out of the oven. It's just not that easy. And so to be upfront and like, hey, how's this going to shake out? And I think it's been great with Scott, and you've talked to other podcasts about like that love language, and it's a relationship.
Yep.
There was one time early on, I think it was like a Friday afternoon, I sent him a message, and it was late, and I didn't hear back from him until Monday morning. And I was like, I got it. The weekend's your time.
Right.
If I got anything I need to talk to you about, I'm going to do it in the morning. Right. And so figuring that out and being respectful of that time, your time as well as our time was key, I think, for us.
Yeah, and not everybody figures that out, but it's one of those things that's got to kind of like, you got to have those boundaries, because it's healthy for both sides.
Oh, yeah.
I guess if you were to do this again,
not doing it again.
This is it. What would you do? What would you do differently? And do it from a perspective of someone who's in planning stage now. Something that, like I say, everyone, no matter who it is, no matter how much you put into it, there's always something where you're like, if I ever did this again, and nobody wants to, but it's like, if I ever did this again, I would change this. What was that for you guys?
I'll start. You got it. I think it's a very minute thing, but the backup generator, and you can kind of see it in the background, we were going to do that at the end, and and I think it's mainly because we had a pot of money, and you got all these things that could go wrong, or things that you want to add in, and where that pot of money is going to be earmarked for, but you got to kind of keep after it, because if it's not there and something comes up, what do you do? Yep. So we had a backup generator system earmarked all along, because we're out, we're kind of rural. Yeah. We're low on the list if something were to ever happen. And I think it's really important to get that done early, and we trimmed it out, and it's on the side of the barn, and it looks amazing because you can come back and add it, but it's going to look like spaghetti noodles on the side of the
Right.
house, and it'll bug you. And I'm so glad that we went and did that up front. And I think it's something minor. But the other thing, your feelings are going to get hurt because like as a homeowner or property owner, and it's not an intentional thing. Like, I mentioned the road. It's like, man, we put so much time and energy into this thing. The concrete trucks have got to come in here. Like, it's got to happen. And if it doesn't, you're not building a barn. And so you just kind of have to accept, like, it'll all work out.
Yep.
And there's all little minor speed bumps. But and small thing, I would do the backup generator. We did.
Right.
And I'm glad we did, and it'll be good. But I think that would be my recommendation. Small thing.
How about you?
Yeah, small thing. If I had to do it all over again through this whole process, I would have skipped the whole like almost 2 years time period where we did all of the other research on our own and looked into all these other, companies and builders. Because eventually we came back to you.
Right.
And if I could have just saved that 2 years, we would have been in here a long time
Right.
ago.
It's my fault.
I apologize. Forgive you. And we're almost in it. So
Yeah, there we go.
It's okay. But I would have just, for somebody who's looking to build a barndominium like this, you can explore every avenue like we did, but you're probably going to come back because I just don't think you can find anything better.
The add-on to that is you've grown so much as a brand, and I say that a bunch, but I really feel that way. And it was, when we started, it was a company in the upstate, and now you're all over.
Yeah.
So the ability, I think, for someone to find y'all and be like, yeah, they're knocking this thing out of the park. We didn't have that. We kind of had to navigate through, and you're already here now. So to come and do this again, it'd be a no-brainer. I mean, all that legwork's already been done. You've already established what the outcome is going to be and what the process is and how you get from A to B. So it's just evolved, and we evolved too, I guess.
If somebody is sitting on the fence right now, I mean, that was golden. But somebody's sitting on the fence right now that's considered this, and maybe they're having a similar experience. Maybe they're in an area where it's a new area, or an area where we build, but we're not close yet with design centers and things like that. What advice would you give them in terms of like getting started? Like, regardless if they were building with us or not, this could be a nationwide thing. Like for you, what would you tell them about finding that builder for them, and with a specific kind of goal or target that helped you guys?
Well, for me, originally, we had our initial discussion. I was happy and comfortable with you from the get-go. So, the other builders that we talked to throughout that long 2-year period, I didn't get that same vibe. I wasn't feeling them.
Well, I mean, there's not many allies out there. There's not many advocates or allies that'll help you through the process. Everyone's more than willing to take, a pile of cash and promise you something, or maybe deliver some goods, but they don't get assembled. And there's so much of that out there, and that's kind of what we experienced. And the true ally was where we started.
Yeah.
And, and it comes from that, like, I'm going to get you there. And, the process is going to be messy, but we'll get there. For my recommendation, I think, it's been so long since we've lived in a house, but I think if you're approaching the design process, I think it's a good idea to take stock of what you have, and because that helps enter in the process with Jeff, because we sat down with Jeff and it was awesome, but it was like it just great. He's like, we could do this over here, and it was
yes,
and it's like,
that.
yeah, do that. We'll put this here, and so there's no real check valve to like, all right. And then we ended up at a number which didn't mean it. So to have an idea of like really what do you like about where you're at in terms of a living concept? What are the things that really bug you that are really important? And then like a list of like things like, let's add these in if we can, and using that to go through the design process, whether it's with y'all or anybody, I think would really help, because it's kind of like home building. Once you start that design phase, it's like adult Christmas. I can do all this stuff and it's going to be perfect. And the reality of it is all that cool stuff has a number. And, if you can't get to where you need to be on a budget standpoint, it doesn't do you any good. So I think having a sort of a framework to what do I really want when I approach the design process would be helpful.
Yeah, and now that we ended up with the maple plan, that's the one that we chose, and it fits every one of our needs. It just about checks every one of our boxes.
What's hilarious is I look back at some of those old emails with Jeff, and the very first design meeting we had, he basically built us a maple, and he sends it to us, and we're the internet lies. I mean, it's like you look at the stuff and it's like, I'm looking at these barndominiums online and like, Jeff, what's like, this thing is, he's like, well, this is what you wanted. We went through the design process. And I'm like, no, this thing's got to be huge. We got to knock this thing out of the park. And it's so funny, like, to look at the plan, and we didn't have a name on it. It did have a garage, which we'll get to later. But to come full circle, it was like, it's so, I'm sure that I felt like the office was like, when we pulled back, I felt like there was a Monday meeting, like the Hoelschers will be back. And then when we sent the email, like, can we come back? And you're like, the email went around like, they're back. We told you. So it's good to navigate that process. And some people don't have to and can jump on board. And I would encourage it because you've evolved as a company and it's just different and it's better. But if you need to navigate through, then do that. But I think having a roadmap as you approach the design process is definitely, because it's adult Christmas. Once you sit down, like, oh, I can do this.
Yeah, that's the hard part. The hard part is getting it from your head onto paper within your budget.
Mm-hmm.
And everyone's like, I don't understand why it takes so long to do this. I'm like, because this is the hard part. Once we give you a number, we know what we're doing.
Yeah.
That's easy. It's just come out here and execute, right? But the get it there, that's hard. So I'm going to shift to this. One thing, as I want to say thank you guys, because you've been brand champions for us down here to the point to where we're literally building a brick and mortar in Conway. But for me, the most rewarding piece of this was I'm like indoctrinated. I'm a giver. I love to give. I love to pour back in, and I like building community, not just building houses. And like the first thing that I think about is when we're going into an area is how could we have an impact in the area we're going to? And there's absolutely no question. Like, people know I'm a Carolina Miracle League lunatic. I love it. I have a daughter that plays. It's been a big blessing to me, and we've partnered that. And now in other areas, we champion with other nonprofits and stuff. But here, I got an email that said, hey man, I just saw the thing where you guys gave all the money to the Carolina Miracle League. We have one too. And you sent me the flyer and connected me. You're like, this is the person you need to talk to. And so I went in and I met with her, and we did the same thing. So before we even found a building to lease, we made a charity partner down here with the Miracle League. And that, it was really cool for me to have clients that bought into that vision and brought it to the table and built the opportunity, the bridge. And for me, that'll always be like a cool moment to where you get it. Like, it's more than just this house. It's more than just this thing. Like, there's a different element here that we want to impact the community. And we do that by building barns. And because you built this barn, right, and because you trusted us to do it, revenue that was created has been poured back into your community. So I would say you guys are responsible for it. So like, we're good stewards with it, but it wouldn't be possible without clients down here. And so like, this is the second barn in Conway. And because of those people that took a chance on a company that is not physically here, allowed us to make an impact in the community before we were physically here. And so that, for me, that is top tier, amazing. And I'll remember forever. Like, it's one of those things where I'll be like, I remember how we got connected here. Sean sent me an email and said, hey, you need to get connected here. And we did. And so we got a cool event coming up in November with them. It's the first event, and I'm hoping you guys can come. I'm excited to be officially here in Conway and planting the flag and already like building community connections before we even get focused on ourselves. Mm-hmm. And that's been awesome. But thanks so much for like doing this and getting on here. It's tremendous when people get to see clients and see the experience and hear struggles and, things that went into this, because we're all humans and everyone has the same thing, the need to be heard and understood. And like, our goal is to make that possible. And by doing that, then you get you get the reward of coming out and having this beautiful barn and seeing your dream become reality. And then even beyond that, like connecting us to an incredible opportunity down here to serve the community. And that's, it wouldn't be possible unless all that decision making
Right.
took place and you took a chance on us, because you did. We weren't here. You took a chance. Now we are here. And that wouldn't be possible without the Hoelscher family. So thanks so much for coming on and spending some time with us. And I'm pumped for the next couple weeks, get you guys in here. Yeah, it's going to be fun. So thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys, for tuning in to the Barndo Show podcast. If you're watching on YouTube or wherever you're listening to this content, hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And then be sure to check us out on all of our social media platforms at the Barndo Co. Super simple to find us. And then when you're ready to dive in a little more, maybe look around some of our available floor plan options, or take a look at the gallery of our work, or maybe you're ready to connect with our team and explore what it looks like to build your dream barndominium, you can visit us online at thebarndoco.com.